have that kind of stuck emotional grasping, how do you move to the next level? How does anyone teach you anything? How does anyone share anything with you? You know better than everybody. You're the best. You're the most fantastic. You know everything. Since you're the best, you're the fantastic, you know everything. How can anyone teach you? How could you even fold your hands to a guru who may be attained? How can you? Because your self-projection is so strong. Your self of I is so strong. This self of I is different than the Western concept of self-confidence. Self-confidence and self-I is different. Self-confidence is when you've done something compassionately and well and successful, and you share that with others with great patience. That's self-confidence. Self-grasping, or I, me, is you want things your way. When things are not your way, you assert yourself to the point of being harmful to others. So the self-grasping of I, me, is very different than self-confidence. Self-grasping of I is you want things your way, and if you have money, if you have position, if you have connection, if you have friends, you use these connections, business and friends to assert it your way, and if you're not, you're offended and you get people back or you snub them. Remember, I'm not going to say the name, remember when I told you guys, Ayayula, as an example. No names, please. Ayayula. Okay? Now, when you have this strong self-grasping of I, it must be my way, if you don't have any resources or people or whatever, you just get angry and just sit there. We know some ex-KMP people like that. You just sit there and you just get angry. And you just shout at the whole world. Now, there are people with a very strong self-grasping I who have money, who have connections, who have power. And they will get you back for that. And they will use that on you. But my question is this, is that whether you have power to exert your self-grasping mind or you don't have power, in the end, you lose all power. In the end, you will lose it all. You will fade and fade and fade until you die. Buddha died. The queen and kings of Thailand and Japan and England, all that have died. And they have the best doctors, the best facilities, they all died. Jesus had to die. So definitely we have to die. So hence, Milarepa, he was ready for the higher Dharma teachings when his preliminary practices were fulfilled. So the preliminary practices was destroying one's preconceived ideas of how things should be. I want you all to think about it with your intelligent, educated minds. The preconceived ideas of how things should be is what makes us lazy. It's what makes us angry. It's what makes us irresponsible. It's what makes us stuck or stubborn. Some of us are very stubborn. It must be my way. And we'll spend hours and hours and hours discussing with people why things must be my way. And we're very stuck. And we're very stubborn, like an ox. Just, it must be this way. And if it's not this way, they become very, very unhappy about it. So, when you have a strong, wrong sense of grasping, you become stubborn. Or you become angry. Or you become uncaring. Some people become cold. You slap 20 people, they say, whatever. You give presents to 20 people, they're like, whatever. They become cold. Why do they become cold? It's because their strong sense of self-grasping and selfish mind is very, very, very strong. And how that self-grasping mind manifests with each person is according to their training. So when they're little, if they shout and scream and make a big scene and they get what they want, when they grow up, they're going to do the same thing. When they're little and they're abused by very strong people, they just turn off. They just turn off to the abuse. So when they grow up, when people are doing things similar, they just turn off. Because their self-grasping is very strong. When they're little, because their self-grasping is so strong, they let your mother and their father, their brothers, uncles, sisters do everything. And their brothers and fathers and sisters do everything. And they do everything as they like. So when they grow up, they become highly irresponsible. Why do they become highly irresponsible? Because they're used to their self-grasping mind saying, you do it. So when they grow up and they're in their 20s and 30s and they should be adults, they're not adults. They still are dependent on everybody around them. They're still lazy and irresponsible. Why? Because their self-grasping mind manifests in that way. Because of their environmental conditioning. So if they're young and they had everything, they're little princes and princesses, when they just make a noise and the parents buy 10 fishes, they buy a giraffe, they buy a cockatoo, and they buy a house, they buy a new car. Don't cry anymore, my little princess, please. You'll get anything you want. So when they grow up, they're going to have the same attitude. This cannot, that cannot. They have mood swings. They go up and down. They're unhappy. They complain. Sometimes they're laying out in their bed like, oh, I don't think I can handle it. And what went wrong? Their petrol in their car ran out. So they pressed for a week. Because last time when anything went wrong, their parents gave them a zoo to make them happy. Parents gave them clowns. The whole Ringling Brothers circus was brought over to make them happy because their lollipop dropped on the floor. Can you imagine a little princess dropped their lollipop? And then the mother said, stop crying, my little princess. You're such a wonderful little thing. You're going to grow up and marry a handsome prince and he's going to be straight. And he's great and he's fabulous and he's wonderful and he's going to take care of you. Don't cry. It's just a lollipop. We have another 500 lollipop. All right, I'll bring you the circus. I'll buy you the zoo. I'll buy you 20 cars, a new dress, I'll buy you Barbie dolls, whole collection. Here you are. Okay, I'm happy now. And then they get trained that way. They get trained that way, so when they grow up, when tiny little thing goes wrong, they cannot tahan. And they expect the same type of environmental nurturing again. Some people become very cold. They become totally cold. Nothing registers. You slap the crap out of them, they're sitting there like... You tell the whole world, hey, you know what? I found out your father's a queen. They're like... They're just cold, they don't feel anything. That's how they adjusted to their self-grasping mind. Some people become controlling, neurotic. What time is the meeting? What seat am I sitting on? What color is the seat? Is it facing the sun? Is the aircon blowing on me? Do I get a pen or do I bring my own? And what kind of pen? Is it ballpoint or what? What color is the pen? Is it fine point? And who else is coming to the meeting? What are they wearing? What are we drinking? They become totally controlling. They become neurotic. Because why? That's how their self-grasping mind manifests when they were growing up, because the environmental conditions allowed it. Some people, they grow up to have power, influence, and friends. And when they're young, when they didn't get their way, they can say, Mommy, fire the maid. Mommy, fire the butler. Mommy, fire the driver. He looked at me. Mommy, get rid of the gardener. So when they grow up, they've grown up into wealth and affluence, they have friends, they have position, they have powers. So what they do is if you offend them, they cut their connections, they stop all connections, they make sure you fail, they make sure you fall down, and that's how they manipulate you. Why? That comes from a strong sense of the selfish. It must be my way, my concept, my design. So some people are very lazy. So therefore, think about it. What I'm teaching you, you think about where the source of all these emotional manifestations come from. A, the source of the emotional manifestation for a princess, for Mr. Lazy, for Miss Cocky, for spoiled brat, for princesses, for neuroticism, for control. All this comes from what? It comes from the self-grasping mind. And some people, very, very stubborn. Oh my God, for one teeny little point, you gotta talk to them for 1 week, and they're like, no, no, no. And then they're gonna tell you their opinion. It's like one whole book, they explain to you why, and you're like, you know what, could you just like give in once? Can I just win? Can I show you this one? And you're like, oh. And you're like, wait a minute, Rinpoche told me, compassion. Om Shanti. Om, I will not stab him. Om, I'm not going to kick him. Om, I do not quit. Om, I will not burn him. Om. And they're still going on and on about there, and they just won't change at all. You know why? They're so afraid to be wrong. They're so afraid to look bad. And they have so much fear. They cannot be softer. And they cannot do things another way. Because they just can't stand to lose. Because when they were growing up, they were put down. When they were growing up, the neighbors put them down. People put them down. People made them feel small. So when they grow up, they have power, they have some education, they can speak, they're adults, they're strong, they're big. They want to assert that, to never feel like they're put down. And you know what's the sad part? What put them down is not people winning. What puts them down is their fear. that their self-grasping mind, protection of their self-grasping mind. That's their fear. That's why people are very stubborn. So when you study the Dharma, and you listen to this, and you look at people's emotions, it's very easy to profile people. Why is it easy to profile them? You just look at them one day, a few hours, you see how they act, how they sit, how they talk, what they do, what their expression is, how they, even the tone of their voice. A master can profile that person very easily and apply the appropriate Dharma. Why is that? He applies the appropriate Dharma because he cares. And he gives the appropriate Dharma because he's studied and he's practiced. And the person who receives it has affinity with the Lama very strongly. So therefore, those who are very lazy and push responsibilities onto others, and you have to remind them all the time, is because their self-grasping mind is so strong, and the environmental conditions when they were growing up were so perfect for them to enact that laziness. They got used to it. So as an adult, they become useless. They become losers. Sorry to say, they become losers. They become people that people don't respect, and people you have to push, and people just go, I don't really want to work with this person. I like this person, but I don't want to work. Why? The environmental conditions. Then that's one type, lazy, irresponsible. It all leads back to self-grasping mind. Another one is people who are spoiled rotten, cannot tahan even a small bit of difficulty or problems, and they go into mood swings, they go into, they're not happy, they're spoiled brats. Why? It's not as they projected when they were growing up. The way they grew up, it was planted in their brain, it should be this way, this way, this way, this way. And the brain accepted it because they were too selfish to think otherwise. Selfishness doesn't come from one lifetime, it's many lifetimes. And then there are people who just say, I couldn't deal with it. Or there are just people who deal with everything, they're neurotic. They want to control everything. And then there are people who use their influence and power to threaten you to do it their way. And then there are people who have nothing, who have no power, no influence, nothing. And they just show a lot of anger. Why? All of those emotions and more all stem back to the self-cherishing mind, where I, me, myself must win. And let me make a differentiation again. This is not self-confidence. Self-confidence is allowing others space and to win and to nurture and to help and to love and to let them do things and to let them be skillfully change them. And you're confident about it and you're happy about it and you accept them. That's self-confidence. But asserting your way in a non-professional manner, just for the sake of it, is because you're afraid of losing what you're comfortable with, the way you grew up. So hence all those from the self-grasping mind.